Welcome, my name is Rachel and I'm an intuitive energy healer. Today we're going to talk about what it means to follow your inner guidance. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's two voices within us. At every moment, in every moment of every day, there are one or two voices that we are listening to. And the trick is to discern which voice you are listening to. The first voice is the ego. The ego might say things that are nasty and harsh, like you're pathetic, or you're lazy, or you're not successful enough, or you need to get it together, or you need to put yourself out there more, you need to do more, you need to take that job because it's got a better status, or take that project even though it doesn't feel right because it's going to give you more money, or hurry, get more done, whatever it's telling you. The other voice is a voice that is much gentler. It is much softer. It speaks through our heart. And sometimes this other voice can be harder to hear because the ego is really loud, especially when that is all that we have listened to, or when we haven't been aware that there's another voice trying to speak to us, trying to guide us. And that other voice is your higher self. Our higher self will never lead us astray. Okay? Our higher self is our soul. So she or he, your soul, knows what you're meant to do in this life, what your purpose is, and even knows what the path is. So we'll be guided along that path more through a feeling. The ego, because it is rooted in fear, will feed us all kinds of nonsense and bogus lies all day long. Right? Making us compare ourselves to others, or making us criticize ourselves, or making us criticize others. It's just a nonstop feeling of not being good enough, or us against them kind of feeling. So allow me to share two kind of small examples of how this works. In February 2020, I'm pretty sure it was February, in February 2020, I sat down on my computer to book a vacation to Croatia for our family of 4. And the ego was saying, hurry up, sit down, book it now. Your husband's agreed to go before he changes his mind. Sit down and book it. And so I'm on there and I could feel that like anxiety and that kind of panicky urgency to get this done, to get it purchased, to get the confirmation, yes, we're doing this. But all the while, I knew that my higher self was like, no, back off, take your hands off the laptop, back away from the computer, give it a couple days, just hands off. And I was so aware of both of the voices. And in that moment, I chose the ego. Because the ego is like, but you want a beach vacation. You want to go to Croatia, And so I booked it. I don't need to probably remind anyone of this, but in mid-March 2020, the world shut its doors. The world shut its doors. Flights were no longer flying in response to the COVID-19 virus. And so come summer, there were no flights. We weren't going anywhere. Right? So that's an example of me not listening to my higher self, who was actually encouraging me just to take my hands off and back away, that it didn't feel right. Something about it didn't feel right. Another example on a much smaller scale is recently I organized this group call with this new group. And when I was looking at dates, the ego was like, that day, Friday, because you know that several of these women don't have Fridays off, and others work from home. So Friday's a good day. They're gonna not need to, maybe they don't need to be as serious at work. They can take an hour for themselves to do this call, and this reason and that reason. And I could feel the intensity, which is often the ego. If you feel this intensity coming in, like, just do it, just choose that date, it's gonna work, blah, 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 whatever it is. But meanwhile, my higher self is like, that doesn't feel right. That day doesn't feel right. So again, I listened to the ego because I was being told by the ego, get this done, put it in your calendar, schedule it, get on it, right? All these kind of intense urgency, fear-based messages. So I did. When the time came to have that call, within 1 hour, maybe even within 45 minutes, maybe even half an hour, 85% of those women and men texted to let me know they weren't going to be able to make it. And it was all out of the blue scenarios that they didn't see coming their way for that moment in time, that day, that time. And I thought, I had to laugh. I was like, well, there you go. If I would have listened to my higher self, I would have known and chosen a different day. So those are just two small examples. So following your inner guidance also means following the hearing and listening to the whispers in your heart, right? So when you're determining your path in the world, or what job to take, or what project to work on, or what school to go to, what university program to do, what extracurricular courses to take, you listen to the messages in your heart, right? Does your heart feel expansive and joyous and excited in a really beautiful, big, open, profound way, considering those choices? So here's an example of that. I have this beautiful, beautiful young woman, this client, who, due to unforeseen circumstances, suddenly was needing to change career, change where she lived. Everything changed. And when I sat with her on the phone, I went into her energy, and I could hear what her ego was telling her. And so I said it out loud. And I said, are you hearing this message, this voice that's saying, you're pathetic, hurry up, get on with your life, look at you, you're sitting around and doing nothing, figure it out, everyone's getting ahead, you're doing nothing, you're lazy, you're pathetic. And she just was like, oh my gosh, yes, I hear that every day. Then she proceeded to tell me that she was going to sign up for a university program because if she would do this program, it would lead her in a few years to a very well-paying job, something that would be more of an esteemed position. And I thought, okay, well, let's you and I feel into this, right? And see what your soul, your higher self, is guiding you to do. Or, just see, is this your higher self, your soul, or is this the ego telling you to do this university program and to follow this career? And when we tuned into it and I let her feel into it, I said, how do you feel? She said, I feel constricted. I feel confined. I feel like everything's closing in on me, like the walls are coming in on me. I said, okay. So then we joined with her soul, and I said, let's let your higher self share with you what she has in mind, where she's leading you. And sure enough, her higher self had messages of not this program at all, not that career path at all, but a really beautiful path that was more gentler and more authentic to who she actually is. So that's the difference between, and we probably can all think of times when we listened to the ego and made decisions versus when we made decisions from that higher self, from our higher selves. So I'm going to give you 2 tips to help you follow your inner guidance. The first tip is to be the observer. So observe during your day. Observe the voices that you hear, right? Observe if you're listening to the ego. Aha, okay, that sounds like harsh or like stressful or anxious. And then take it a next step further. How do you feel in your body when you're listening to that voice? Do you feel tense? Do you feel nervous or anxious? Or do you feel like impatient or hurried? Right? Those are all good signs that you're listening to the ego. Because the higher self has a gentler way of communicating, a way of communicating that makes you feel like all is well. The ego, no, it's a complete opposite. So the first step is just to be aware of what voice, who is coaching you, right? Who is coaching you moment to moment every day? Just be aware of what voice you're listening to. Is it the more loving, compassionate, inspiring, uplifting, encouraging voice that tells you that, you're on the right path, or to go this way, or, to honor yourself, or whatever this beautiful voice is telling you? Or is it the ego that's a bit more harsh? So the second tip is to spend time in quiet and stillness. So spend time outside in nature, especially if you're alone, going for a walk through the forest or up in the mountains, or kayaking or paddleboarding, or spend time in nature, or meditate. So both of these things will help quiet your mind, right? It'll quiet the ego's voice, which is so loud so much of the time. And that way, you're better able to, almost like tuning into a certain radio channel, you're better able to hear the messages from your inner guidance. Because your inner guidance, your soul, your higher self, is always communicating with you. Always guiding you and leading you. It's just a matter of quietening the mind so that you can hear your soul's guidance. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you loved it, please feel free to share it, and I will see you next time.